Breaking news! The reality heading into this Saturday matchup is much bigger than just another game on the schedule. The Eagles aren't simply preparing to take the field, they're stepping into a moment that reveals exactly who this team is as the postseason gets closer. And anyone who's been following closely knows this. Very few teams in the NFL have been tested like Philadelphia this season. This has been one of the strangest schedules you'll ever see. Games on Monday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, short weeks, constant adjustments, and a steady run of playoff-caliber opponents. That forges toughness, builds resilience, and turns a team into one that's ready for pressure. That kind of road matters, and it matters now more than ever. The numbers make it clear. Favored by anywhere from 6 to 12 points, with the over-under set at 44.5. The expectations are obvious. The league expects the Eagles to win, and to win convincingly. But the real story isn't just about being favored. It's about imposing their will. It's about controlling every phase of the game, from start to finish, and showing maturity in a matchup they absolutely should dominate. These are the kinds of games that separate good teams from true contenders. The way the Eagles approach this challenge says a lot about how far this team can go once the postseason begins. This is the type of performance that defines identity, sends a message to the rest of the league, and strengthens belief inside the locker room. If you're feeling this moment with the team, if you already sense the weight of this game, let that energy show in the comments and keep that Eagles mentality alive. And before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like button. It helps the channel a lot and keeps this content reaching everyone who lives and breathes Philadelphia Eagles football. When you look at Washington, the biggest turning point in their season came with the injury to Jayden Daniels. He is out for the rest of the year, and that changes everything. Marcus Mariota is now the starting quarterback, a familiar name in Philadelphia and a former Heisman Trophy winner. Even so, this Commanders offense has struggled to find consistency all season long, regardless of who has been under center. They are near the bottom of the league in points per game and overall offensive production. Third down efficiency has been an issue, and while they have been effective in the red zone, getting there has been the real problem. This has been a frustrating year for Washington offensively, and that frustration shows up on tape. Defensively, it has been even tougher for them. Despite having a defensive-minded head coach, the Commanders are among the worst teams in the league in points allowed, and yards per play. That opens the door for Philadelphia to move the ball, sustain drives, and potentially create explosive plays if the execution is there. This is a defense that can be stressed both horizontally and vertically, and that puts the pressure squarely on the Eagles' offense to take advantage of what is in front of them. Now flip it to the Eagles, and the numbers tell an interesting story. This offense has been middle of the pack in raw production for much of the season, but there is one area where they have been elite, the red zone. All year long, Philadelphia has been the most efficient red zone offense in the NFL, and that has been a defining trait of this team. When they get opportunities, they finish. Defensively, Vic Fangio deserves a lot of credit. This unit is giving up very few points, ranking near the top of the league in red zone defense, and consistently making life difficult for opposing quarterbacks. You can feel the identity of this defense taking shape, and it is starting to look like the kind of group that can carry a team deep into January. The most encouraging part, though, is what we have seen recently from the Eagles' offense. Coming off the games against the Chargers and the Raiders, there are real signs of progress. Against Las Vegas in particular, the offense looked sharp, decisive, and balanced. Jalen Hurts was efficient, confident, and dynamic with his legs. The play design felt smarter. The scheme felt more modern. The play calling showed creativity and adaptability. This coaching staff deserves recognition for making in-season adjustments, because what we saw in that Raiders game looked like an offense rediscovering its identity. There was a clear commitment to balance. The run game and the pass game worked together, which is exactly what made this offense so dangerous last year. The Eagles were not overly pass-heavy, and they found ways to create downfield opportunities while still protecting Hurts. Even after a minor ankle issue against Las Vegas, there is no concern about his availability or effectiveness heading into this game. Hurts remains the leader of this team, the emotional engine of the offense, and everything flows from him. As the playoffs approach, stacking strong performances matters. Confidence matters. Rhythm matters. This team already knows it has a Super Bowl caliber defense. If the offense continues to build momentum, this becomes a very dangerous group. This game is also about the trenches. The Eagles' pass rush against the Commanders' offensive line is a fascinating matchup. Washington invested heavily in improving that unit, and the results have been noticeable. They have allowed very few sacks. They run the ball efficiently, and they generate explosive runs at one of the highest rates in the league. This will be a serious test for the Eagles' defensive front, especially without Jalen Carter. The addition of Jalen Phillips has helped elevate the entire group, but this is a playoff-level offensive line they are facing. How the Eagles hold up here will tell us a lot. Then you get to the matchups on the outside, and this is where it gets fun. Quinyon Mitchell against Terry McLaurin is must-watch football. These two have a history, and Mitchell has consistently held his own, including a huge interception in the NFC Championship game. McLaurin is still an explosive threat when healthy, but Mitchell is playing at an all-pro level. The numbers back it up. Elite catch rate allowed, elite tight window coverage, no touchdowns surrendered across more than 800 snaps. This is blanket coverage, and it is becoming one of the defining strengths of this defense. Inside, Cooper DeJean brings another layer to this conversation. His ability to tackle, cover, and play with physicality in the slot gives the Eagles flexibility against versatile offensive weapons. Stopping yards after the catch, especially against physical receivers, is critical, and DeJean has been outstanding in that role. Add in Adoree Jackson on the outside, and this secondary has the depth and versatility to dictate matchups. Finally, the Eagles have to be disciplined against the run and against Mariota's mobility. Washington's rushing attack is efficient and explosive, and if Philadelphia fails to control it, that is the path to an upset. Mariota will keep the ball on RPOs, he will scramble if lanes open, and maintaining edge discipline and pass rush integrity is non-negotiable. The Eagles have been burned by mobile quarterbacks before, and that cannot happen again here. This is also about the opportunity in front of them. Beat Washington, and the Eagles win the NFC East. Do it on the Commanders' field, and you are talking about back-to-back division titles in a division that has not seen a repeat winner since Philadelphia last accomplished it in 2003 and 2004. Everything is right there. Execution, focus, and taking care of business will decide how this story is told. What makes this moment so important is that games like this often reveal more than the scoreboard ever will. This is the type of matchup where discipline, urgency, and attention to detail separate a team that is simply good from a team that is truly ready for January football. The Eagles cannot afford to drift in and out of focus. Washington will try to shorten the game, lean on the run, and use Marcus Mariota's legs to keep drives alive. That is why the first quarter matters so much. If Philadelphia establishes control early, forces Washington into predictable passing situations, and turns this into a game played on the Eagles' terms, the talent gap becomes impossible to ignore. This is where Vic Fangio's defense has a chance to send a message. Consistent pressure without losing contain, tight coverage on the outside, and aggressive tackling in space can suffocate this Commanders' offense. Third downs are going to be critical. If the Eagles get off the field quickly and create extra possessions, the pressure flips entirely onto Washington. You start forcing throws. You start seeing mistakes. And that is when this defense can take over a game. On the other side of the ball, the Eagles' offense has a chance to reinforce something the fan base has been waiting to see all season: continuity. Not just flashes, not just a good half, but another complete performance built on balance. The run game does not need to dominate, but it has to be respected. When defenses hesitate for even a split second, that is when Jalen Hurts is at his best. That is when play action works. That is when the middle of the field opens up. And that is when this offense looks like the unit that went on a championship run. Hurts' leadership cannot be overstated here. His poise, his decision-making, and his willingness to take what the defense gives him are what keep this offense on schedule. This is not about forcing hero plays. It is about stacking positive reps, protecting the football, and finishing drives. The red zone efficiency that has defined this team all year has to continue, because playoff football is about maximizing every opportunity. Field goals are nice. Touchdowns are statements. There is also an emotional layer to this game that should not be ignored. Winning the NFC East on a rival's field is not just another achievement. It is a psychological edge. It reinforces belief in the locker room. It validates the work done through short weeks, tough opponents, and constant scrutiny. For a team that understands how quickly a season can swing, moments like this help lock in confidence at the right time. And that confidence matters, because the margin for error shrinks from here on out. The Eagles are not chasing potential anymore. They are chasing precision. They already know they can compete with anyone defensively. What they are building now is trust on offense, trust in the system, and trust that when the lights are brightest, they can execute without hesitation. This game is an opportunity to prove that the recent progress is not temporary, that the adjustments are real, and that this team is peaking when it needs to. Handle business here, and the conversation shifts from can the Eagles do it again to who can realistically stop them. What also cannot be ignored is how much this stretch is shaping the identity of this roster. Every snap right now is building muscle memory for playoff football. How fast the offensive line communicates. How quickly receivers adjust their routes when coverage shifts. how disciplined the defense stays when the quarterback breaks the pocket. These are the details that decide postseason games, and this matchup gives the Eagles another full 4 quarters to sharpen those habits. You can already see the confidence growing on defense. The way the secondary trusts the pass rush, and the way the pass rush trusts the coverage, creates a level of aggression that opponents feel immediately. Corners are jumping routes with conviction. Linebackers are triggering downhill without hesitation. Safeties are closing windows instead of reacting late. This is what a Fangio defense looks like when it starts to fully settle in, and it is happening at exactly the right time of the season. Offensively, the communication has been cleaner. Fewer wasted plays, fewer moments of confusion before the snap. The offense does not need to be perfect, but it does need to be consistent, and that is what this game represents. Another chance to prove that the Raiders' performance was not an outlier, but a step forward. Another chance to show that balance is not just a buzzword, but the foundation of how this team wants to win. There is also something powerful about closing the division in this way. Doing it decisively, doing it without drama, doing it by playing smart, physical, disciplined football. That sends a message not just to the locker room, but to the rest of the conference. The Eagles are not sneaking into anything. They are positioning themselves with intent. As the postseason approaches, every opponent will study these games closely. They will look for tendencies. They will look for weaknesses. The Eagles' job right now is simple. Give them as little as possible to exploit, while continuing to refine what already works. This is not about style points. It is about stacking wins, staying healthy, and entering January with momentum and belief. That is why this game matters beyond the standings. It is another checkpoint in the evolution of this team. Another opportunity to confirm that the pieces are aligning. Another step toward becoming the most complete version of themselves when it matters most. And this is where the mental edge comes into play. The Eagles understand that the postseason does not reward teams for what they did in September or October. It rewards teams that are sharp right now. That is why the emphasis has shifted from experimentation to execution. The playbook is not shrinking, but the margin for sloppy football absolutely is. Every pre-snap read, every protection call, every route depth matters more with each passing week. What stands out most is how this team is learning to win in different ways. Earlier in the season, it often felt like the Eagles needed everything to go right offensively to separate from opponents. Now, there's a growing comfort in letting the defense control the tempo while the offense methodically builds momentum. That is a dangerous combination. When a team knows it does not need to force anything, patience becomes a weapon. Long drives where defense is down. Sustained pressure creates cracks. And once those cracks appear, the Eagles have the talent to exploit them. This is also where leadership shows itself. Not just from Jalen Hurts, but across the roster. Veterans setting the tone in practice. Younger players understanding situational football. Everyone knowing when to push the pace and when to slow the game down. These are the things that do not always show up in the box score, but they absolutely show up in wins. Washington will have moments in this game. They will hit a run. Mariota will escape the pocket. A receiver will break free. That is the NFL. The real test is how the Eagles respond. Do they reset quickly? Do they clamp down on the next series? Do they turn a potential momentum swing into nothing more than a footnote? The best teams do exactly that. And this is another opportunity for Philadelphia to prove it belongs in that conversation. The bigger picture is clear. This team is building towards something. You can feel it in the way they play, in the confidence of the defense, and in the growing rhythm of the offense. This is not about hype. It is about preparation meeting opportunity. Handle this game the right way. And the Eagles are not just division champions, they are a team nobody wants to see when the playoffs begin. Because once you reach this stage of the season, belief becomes just as important as talent. You can see it in the body language. You can see it in how quickly this team responds after adversity. There is no panic, no scrambling for answers, just a steady understanding of what needs to be done next. That is the mark of a team that has been through it together and learned from the lows as much as the highs. This Eagles group is no longer trying to figure out who it is. The identity is clear. Physical up front, disciplined on defense, efficient in the red zone, opportunistic when mistakes are forced. That is a formula that travels, and it is a formula that holds up when conditions get tougher and pressure rises. These final games are about sharpening that edge, not reinventing anything. Every drive now feels intentional. The offense is not rushing plays just to prove a point. The defense is not overcommitting just to make a highlight. There is a calm aggression to the way this team is playing. And that is exactly what you want to see heading toward the postseason. The Eagles understand that championships are not won by chasing moments, but by stacking them. And that is why this stretch matters so much. It is about building trust. Trust in the coaching staff. trust in the adjustments, trust in each other. When that trust is there, execution follows. When execution follows, confidence grows. And when confidence grows, this team becomes incredibly difficult to deal with. This is the version of the Eagles fans have been waiting to see take shape. Not perfect, not flashy for the sake of being flashy, but reliable, composed, and dangerous. A team that knows exactly how it wants to win and is comfortable doing it that way. That is how you survive January football. And even beyond the schemes and matchups, what really stands out is how this team is managing moments. You can tell the Eagles are playing with a clear understanding of situational football. 2-minute drives look calmer. Red zone snaps look more decisive. Third and medium situations are no longer feeling rushed or forced. That growth is subtle, but it is massive when you project it forward into playoff environments where 1 or 2 plays can flip an entire season. What also matters is how this team is learning to close. Closing quarters, closing halves, closing games. That killer instinct does not always show up in blowout wins, but it shows up in discipline. It shows up in not giving opponents free possessions. It shows up in making the other team earn everything. Right now, the Eagles are doing a much better job of that, and it speaks to a roster that is mentally locked in. There is a sense that this group understands what is at stake, not just in terms of standings, but in terms of opportunity. Windows in the NFL are never guaranteed. They open quickly, and they close just as fast. This roster knows it has the pieces. It knows the defense can carry weight. It knows the offense does not need to be spectacular, just sharp and efficient. That awareness creates urgency without panic, and that balance is rare. When you zoom out, this is why these games matter even after a division is within reach. The Eagles are rehearsing for playoff pressure in real time. Every snap is a rep toward trust, chemistry, and confidence. Every correction made now is one less mistake later. Every clean series is another brick laid in the foundation of a deep postseason run. Nothing is promised.